Hi, this is Amy Tremaine with Main Street Properties, and you know that we love to help buyers and sellers in the Sacramento area. Whether you're looking to move in the next 9 days, 90 days, we can help you make that a smooth one. All of our contact information is below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, tap that bell, so that way the next time that we bring any content, you'll be the first to know. Today, I'm so excited because I get to meet with Charles Skinner and Leo, I do not want to butcher this, Skattebo. I knew it. I knew I was going to butcher it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Leo and Charles, for showing up today. And basically, folks, what we're going to do is go over some very common, critical questions that you should be asking any inspector that you hire. Charles does home inspections. Leo does pest inspection. So I'm going to first ask Charles, how long have you been in this business?
So I've been in the home inspection business specifically for about 8 years. Everything else that I have as far as my knowledge and my experience comes from basically when I turned, about 18 and I started doing a lot of these, little repair jobs and things like that. So about 25 years, I've been in the trades of some sort, and I've learned so many different things over this time, different careers and different things that I've done. So that's given me the experience, including the actual on the job experience of being a home inspector.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's a long time. That's a lot of knowledge to build up. All right, Leo, how about you? When did you get into the business?
So I started back when I was 20 years old as just a technician for the big company of Terminex, and then I've been in the business for 27 years now. I've been pest inspector for over 20 years in some sort of fashion of either doing inspections or managing the office. 27 years of experience in the termite and pest control world.
Okay, so it's safe to say that we have a lot of experience on this call. I mean, we're looking like a combined 50 years here. I think these guys know what they're talking about. Okay, cool. So, Charles, let's talk about home inspections. What do you guys check?
So that's a question that's so important. So we're going to check the functionality of pretty much everything in the home. There's obviously going to be some limitations. We pretty much go through the entire home the way that most people would go through and run equipment. So if you want to just even go to the oven and run the oven, go to a fireplace, go to a heater, air conditioning system, we run everything. But at the same time, while we're doing all of that, and then we're also starting to look into specific things, like we'll actually open up the air conditioning and heating system and we'll actually look inside the unit, inside the cabinet. But it's going to be standard inspection style. So it wouldn't be something that, like, for example, an HVAC technician, an air conditioning and heating technician would actually open it up, and then they would also open up other compartments and do a deeper inspection, start to look at things with cameras and things of that nature. That's not something that a general home inspection will include. Typically with our inspection, we're going to check for normal operation, and then if there's anything would indicate that there's something wrong with the unit or it's not operating properly, or there's something that maybe was changed from the original way that it was installed in the first place, then we'll call those things out. We'll mention those things. For example, an inspection I did today, open up the heater. There was some corrosion on the inside and some leakage that ended up coming from the condensate line from the evaporator directly above it, which caused the unit to fail. To then stop everything and start to troubleshoot that air conditioning and heating system, we'll actually then mention that you need to have an air conditioning and heating technician come out and then do further evaluation. So most of our inspection, because again, we're doing a whole home inspection, we're going to look at the roof, we're going to look at the attic space, we're going to look at all the exterior walls, interior walls, we're going to get into the crawl space if the home has one, we'll look at the foundation. We pretty much look at everything that's accessible for us to inspect, where a lot of places most people wouldn't look. And then the other thing that's important, obviously, with a home inspector is we're going to look at things with a different eye than most homeowners do, because most homeowners don't know when something's a problem until it's a problem, and then they have to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking for preventative, like what's going to happen in the future. You can see the problems forming already, right?
One of the things that we find the most of, it's usually deferred maintenance, which causes a lot of the problems that we find, and then also repairs that were done improperly or upgrades that were done improperly.
Okay, so it's not just about fixing it, it's about fixing it right. If a homeowner is going to do their own repairs, then it could come back to bite them if they don't do it the right way.
An example of that would be installing a ceiling fan and not installing the correct blocks inside the ceiling, and in having the ceiling fan either hanging out of the ceiling or, not being properly supported, things like that. And then wiring it improperly also. That's
Okay, yeah. Usually walking through the home, you can kind of see some telltale signs of things like that. It's like wobbling, or you'll see maybe a extension cord running from one place to another.
Yes.
Yeah. Over to you, Leo. What do you guys check for?
So, pest inspection is notated as it's a wood destroying organism inspection. So it kind of looks at anything that is going to destroy wood. What we look for in all the areas, sub area, attic, exterior, interior, we're looking for. There's 3 sections of our report that are section 1, which is going to be an active infestation. So either active termite, active dry rot, something that has already caused damage to the house. So that would be like a section 1 item. And those are the items that people need to maintain and get fixed right away because they're just getting worse and worse and worse. The second part is a section 2 item, which is the conducive conditions. It's kind of like the same thing what Charles was saying about maintenance, something that can cause damage in the future, like a leak under a sink. Hasn't maybe caused damage yet, but if it continues, it's going to cause damage to the vanity. So that would be like a section 2 item. So it's a conducive condition that can actually lead to the infestation of an organism. And then further inspection items are any items that are inaccessible, like insulation that's in the way, maybe trees or bushes on the side of a house, areas where you can't get to the property and see the actual wood. Those are the 3 types of things that we're looking for. Section 1 is a actual infestation. Section 2 is a conducive condition, and section 3 is an inaccessible area. So those are the 3 types of things we're looking for, but just like on a home inspection, we're looking at all areas of the home, from foundation, sub area, all the way to the attic and the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. And water intrusion is a big one that I think people don't take into account, but you guys are really looking for active leaks because that leads to dry rot, correct?
Yeah, so that's when, running the shower pan is one that a lot of pest inspectors or home inspectors will run. You run a shower pan, and then you have to run it correctly. A lot of people will just run the shower head over top of the tile and think that that's going to cause a leak, but you really have to plug the shower, put 2 or 3 inches of water in it, because the pan itself needs to sit, and then the water needs to get in there, and then that's where you can cause a leak in a shower pan. So you'll catch those a lot in the sub area, and then you run all the water from and all the sinks, the toilet, make sure the toilets are leaks, anything that in an area where there's going to be moisture. That's where you're going to see a lot more of infestation quicker and a lot more damage.
Sticking with you, what don't you check?
Well, we don't check like foundation. We don't check things that are going to be more mechanical, like a home inspection will check. That's why me and Charles work together, because a lot of the things on the home inspections aren't things that we're looking for. We may be looking for dry rot in a sub area in like the girders and the joists. But we don't look at like if the joists or girders are necessarily up to engineering standards. So we're looking for the actual damage from the stuff, but not really if it was done, correctly or to construct it. And then when we do an inspection and find damage, they do when you do repairs, we go back out and make sure that the repairs were eliminated, the dry rot was eliminated, and they put in new wood. But like I said, we're not engineers or contractors, so we do an inspection to let you know that the dry rot's gone, or it's not there, or it is there, but we don't do anything. We don't check plumbing. We check the drains, but we don't check like the dishwasher. We don't check the garbage disposal, things that are mechanical. We'll just check to make sure that there's no leaks.
Okay. And do you check for pests?
In the actual wood destroying organism, you do not look for general pests or rodents, stuff like that. But we do offer another inspection, that's a pest inspection, that does look for those items, but they're not going to be in your typical wood destroying organism report because it's separate. That's the difference between pest and termite, because people say a pest inspection, right? And a lot of people say termite inspection, and then we say wood destroying organisms inspection. So the wood destroying organism inspection is more or less a termite inspection in layman's term, because it takes a person that's licensed in termite to do that inspection. And then someone that's licensed in Pest is actually someone that will come and do your general spraying on your house, your quarterly service. That's a technician. That's a different license than they're looking for ants, spiders, and rodents. So the person that does your inspection for wood disorgan might not be licensed to look for the pest control items like general pests like ants and spiders, because it's a totally different license.
Right. And that can be so confusing for buyers because they'll get the report and they're like, well, were there rats? Well, they're actually not even looking for that. So I love that you changed the name from pest to wood destroying, or I've said before, a structural pest inspection, because we're looking for pests that destroy the structure versus just things that live amongst you. So I like that. I'm going to change some of my marketing now. Okay, Charles, what don't you check?
Our standards of practice through our certification, which is InterNACHI, there's actually a lot of things in there that mention, oh, you don't have to check this, you don't have to check that, and these aren't within our scope. But a lot of the times we still check things. For example, it's not typical, depending on the situation, for inspectors to, if it's raining, for example, then you don't check the roof, or if the pitch is too steep, you don't check the roof, But most inspectors will, employ some other kind of method to inspect those items, right? So, pole cameras, drones, whatever the case may be, because they want to obviously provide their clients with the best inspection they can, right? One of the main things is anything that's stored in the home, we don't move any of those items, right? So in most cases, sellers would never be happy with us basically destructing or deconstructing their home to try to look for things in these cases. So I prefer a vacant home when I do an inspection because it gives me the opportunity to see everything. But yeah, that's definitely one of those things that may be, a misconception with home inspection is we do not move things. We don't move couches. We don't move rugs. We don't move items underneath the sink, especially when they're really, really heavily packed with things. Those are items that need to be taken care of basically before the inspector would come to the property. And so that's very important, especially, if it's a big deal and there's a lot of things that need to be looked at, that's communicated with the sellers ahead of time, especially with attic accesses and crawl space accesses. We can't move those things without permission. So, and like I said, I think the biggest thing is doing like pretty intensive inspections and troubleshooting. So like I mentioned before with the air conditioning and heating system, we're not going to spend 20, 30 minutes taking it apart and trying to figure out what the problem is. We're just going to tell you what the problem is and then have that further evaluated. Attic spaces that are not accessible with a platform to be able to actually walk in. We're not going to go into an attic and crawl the entire attic because it's basically unsafe for the inspector. It's unsafe for the situation. And so, in a situation like that, especially with older homes, we're going to look at the attic space as well as we can. But in those kind of cases, we have to, basically refer that to a different type of inspection, because there's no way for us to be able to get in through that attic without, causing possible damage to the home.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in the buyer's best interest, if they're paying for inspections, for the sellers to move their stuff out of the way. But sometimes that can get I can see how that can get a little hairy, or people not wanting to move their stuff around. Okay. Yeah.
And most inspectors are happy to come back out again to re-inspect items if they were blocked, so it's usually not a huge deal, but it can become a problem.
How much does it usually cost for a home inspection?
So home inspections vary, and it also depends on what's being inspected. So for example, if you're just going to inspect, just the basic home and there's nothing else to be added to it. I mean, most home inspections start anywhere from $300 to up to $400. It depends on if there's a crawl space or not. And then obviously, the square footage is what most companies will base their inspection fees on. So typically you're going to be able to start somewhere around $300, but that's a pretty small house typically. Most inspections are going to be somewhere between $400 and $500 for most typically normally sized homes. And then if you're going to add on, different ancillary services based on what the company can do, if they can do a sewer lateral inspection or pool inspections, or if there's an additional building like a shed or, maybe just a pool house or something like that in the back, then obviously that can add to the cost. But typically speaking, most inspections with just a basic home inspection, which is going to include your roof, crawl space, and all areas of the home that are accessible, it's going to be somewhere between $400 and $500. If there is a crawl space, some companies do charge a little bit more for that as well. I want to be specific when I say crawl space, because I've heard a lot of people call it crawl space in the attic. A crawl space or sub area is the area below a home. So if your home has a raised foundation, not a concrete slab foundation, and it's supported and it's a raised area, that would be a crawl space or a sub area. The attic space that's above, that's something that's always included with a home inspection, and there's no additional charge for that typically.
Leo, how much do you charge, or how much does a structural pest inspection?
So in the surrounding Sacramento area, they range anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on which company you work with. And that includes basically everything, the crawl space. Most companies don't charge an additional fee for crawl spaces or any other thing on the actual general structure, which is the main home. But then, just like Charles, if you have a mother-in-law quarters or a separate unit, you may charge a little bit more than that. But most inspections in Sacramento range between $100 and $200 for a WDO inspection. Yeah, so when you ask me that question, the main structure of the home, the main house is what we inspect. There's no, we don't inspect the trees, we don't inspect the fence. You may have termites in a fence, but that it's because it's not a structure, like we talked about, like maybe you were saying change it to kind of a structural inspection. That's a good word for it, because it's not a property inspection, it's a structure inspection. So we can inspect any structure that's on the property, either being a shed, mother-in-law quarters, or the main house. But we are not licensed to really inspect any outside, like a fence or exterior walls, like concrete walls that are maybe separating a neighborhood from a street. You know, some of those back walls are like concrete walls. Those type of things we do not inspect. The structural would just run an inspection report and basically the structure of the property and anything encompassing that.
Can I come to the inspection and be with the inspector while he's doing his thing?
Typically speaking, we have a very set routine, and most inspectors do, right? With the way that they do their inspections. And so I don't mind it. I think the thing when it gets a little bit distracting for me is when it's kind of like surprising. Like they tell me, oh, by the way, and then they just show up, you know what I mean? And so, because I like to be prepared for it, I have to be mentally prepared for it, honestly. But the best way usually is for the buyers to come at the end, and then to basically just go through a walkthrough. And the home inspectors will typically give a decent, a good overview of what's found. It's not going to be every single little thing that was found, but it's going to be, most of the bigger items and the things that are important. Honestly, personally, I actually don't mind, again, as long as I have some warning to get you to kind of, understand what's going to happen. And I sometimes prefer it in those regards, because then I'm actually showing them specifically and exactly and fully what I'm doing. And most people are very surprised with how much we check and all the things that we look at, right? A walkthrough can last 30 minutes to an hour. And especially if it's a first-time home buyer, we'll spend a lot more time with the first-time home buyers, because we'll really take a time to explain things to them, where their shutoffs are, what the electric panel is, where the gas meter is, if there is one, and all that stuff, and really kind of talk about some of those items. That's what I like to do with the first-time home buyers, especially.
Leo, what about you?
Same thing with Charles. Most inspectors have a routine, what they want to do. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me for somebody to walk around with me. I mean, the more or less is just to make sure that you kind of stay out of the inspector's way a little bit, like, because you don't want to miss something, especially if you're the buyer and you're worried about certain things about the property, and if you're asking an inspector a question while they're walking around, they could miss looking up or looking down and miss a pretty big item. So it's just the best thing for if you're going to walk around is maybe just shadow and watch, and then you can ask questions periodically and just kind of stay behind and just kind of see what they're doing. That's the best way to do if you're going to shadow an inspector, is just kind of watch and do it. And then if you have a question, wait for the inspector to maybe take a little bit of a break or stop what they're doing, and then ask the question so it doesn't interrupt the actual process of the inspection. I think that's probably the best idea if you're going to shadow an inspector.
Do you guys have sample reports that people can look up?
Yes, we do. We have those on our website. And basically it's going to show all the different types of inspections that we have, as well as the WDO inspection as well.
When you're looking at a property, what's like something that you're like, this is a big deal, this needs to be handled right away?
Well, and most of the time, I won't say it like that, only because it can. I mean, obviously, I stress the idea that that it's important, but I typically won't say it directly like that. Gas leaks, those are typically things, and those, depending on if the home is occupied, that's something that should be taken care of immediately. Usually, in a case like that, I'll call the buyer's agent, or if I'm dealing with the listing agent, I'll call the listing agent directly and say, hey, there's a gas leak at the home that you have listed here. You really want to take care of this. And most of the time, PG&E will be there before I leave to take care of the problem. It's kind of crazy if it's a bad enough gas leak, right? You know, water leaks that are going to cause a problem that are unknown, right? That are coming into the home, you know, something underneath the sink or something like that. You know, a lot of times if there's something that they don't know about, I'll turn it off. And then those are the more things that are going to kind of stop an inspection. When it comes to just like things that are like, oh my goodness, this is a huge deal. You know, the type of piping the home has, it really just depends on people's opinions about that. You know, high water pressure, structural problems, things that can be detrimental in that regard. Yeah, definitely those kind of things. And like I said, water leaks for sure. Things on the roof that are unknown, that are, you know, large openings that may allow for water intrusion, especially, you know, during the summer months when it's not raining or anything like that. You know, we'll definitely bring those up. But most of the time, that stuff's pretty easily fixable. Most of those areas are just small penetrations that just need, you know, different repairs to prevent that kind of stuff. But yeah, those are some of the bigger ones. I feel like gas leaks and things like that. Oh, and just electrical problems, things that can be detrimental quickly. You know, electrical concerns that may start a fire quickly. Oh, and then also just like dryer vents and things like that. I've actually seen some really bad dryer vents where the pipe, which is usually a 4-inch pipe, is basically clogged almost completely, and there's only a small hole in the center where the air passes through. Yeah, things like that I'll mention.
For our people that have never owned a home before, or people that don't necessarily have a dryer that they have to deal with on a regular basis, once that gets clogged, what's going to happen?
Basically, at minimum, it's going to cause your dryer to take longer to dry, and the worst that can happen is a fire. And it's actually rather common. I'm going to be talking about this, you know, actually pretty soon here myself. And I just did another cleaning. It's very simple to clean your dryer vent. Also, most people don't realize how simple it is. But with your dryer, it's constantly, even though you have a lint screen and all that stuff, a lot of lint still escapes past that and goes into your exhaust system. So your dryer has to, that air, that hot air, moisture laden air has to be exhausted somewhere. And so there's a duct that goes through your house all the way to the outside. And that needs to be exhausted to the exterior, and it needs to be exhausted to the exterior with no obstruction. As soon as a couple of years, even depending on how often you run your dryer and how often you wash clothes, and depending on what you're washing, especially if you wash a lot of, you know, big heavy blankets, or if you have a dog, you know, or a cat. A lot of that stuff can end up, you know, blowing through in there. And like I said, a lot of times when I cleaned dryer vents, I'll see the dog hair and the lid and everything else in there. So the biggest concern is fire, and it's a rather large concern. It's very important maintenance tip to clean your dryer vents.
Leo, same question. Like, is there anything that is just like, this is a big problem?
We'll destroy an organism world. Everything is fixable. You know, termites eat a lot of wood quickly. You know, if moisture problems in wood is wet, it's all dry rot. I think the biggest problem with a pest inspection or termite inspection is going to be moisture, like in the crawl space. If you have a crawl space and your crawl space is really wet and moist, it can cause a lot of damage to the your flooring and your subfloor and your framing. That's one of the bigger ones when you have a crawl space, is moisture. I've seen a lot of houses where the moisture is so bad that that there's water dripping off of the subfloor or dripping off the joists. Wood is supposed to have about 30% moisture in it to keep it kind of fresh and not going in it. You don't want it too dry because it'll crack and twist and do things like that. So it has a little bit of moisture. But once you get up to like 60-70% moisture content in wood, it starts to sweat and it starts to cause issue, and that causes it to dry out faster. And then one of the bigger bugs we have in Northern California because of moisture is wood-boring beetles. So if you have a lot of moisture in your sub area, it's really prevalent to get a wood-boring beetle infestation, and that's the one to take care of that. It's a fumigation with the tarp, and then it's not just a normal one. It's pretty costly. It's like 10 times the amount of like drywood termite fumigation. So wood-boring beetles is probably the biggest infestation, cost-effective wise in our area, and it's always led to moisture. So like when you have a crawl space, making sure that your crawl space is dry free from moisture and dampness is probably the biggest thing and then another thing is your gutters are really bad for with the surrounding organisms, because if your gutters are dirty and clean and they fill up. I know we just had that rain a few weeks ago, and there was so much rain coming down, even gutters that weren't clogged were overflowing with water, because that causes the damage to the roofing, which is the roofing on the edge. So when your gutters are dirty or clogged up and you're having a lot of excessive moisture on your gutter, that causes damage to the edge, the corners of your roofing, the edges of your roofing, and those are areas that are really prevalent to dry rot in any home. Could be a newer home, a year-old home, or it could be, the older home. So those are the main things that I think that are the worst things to worry about, is making sure that your gutters and stuff are clean for the roof, and then to make sure your sub area, if you do have a crawl space, is well ventilated, because the sub area is basically where 99% of your damage is going to be found, because nobody ever crawls under their house. You have a house for 30 years and never go into your house and never know what's going on. So making sure that you have that. And that's what's good about having a home inspection and a termite inspection is, even if you're not selling or buying your home, general maintenance on your home, you should get a termite inspection every 2 years, just to make sure if you do get an infestation, it's caught before they cause any damage. And then a home inspection, before I got involved in the home inspection world with real estate with Charles, I didn't know much about home inspections, but for $400 or $500 every couple of years to make sure that your vents are cleaned out, your electrical is working, and all your stuff is a small price to pay for thousands of dollars of damage for anything on your property. So just that's a very good tip for any homeowner. Is these general maintenance inspections are not just when you're selling or buying a home. It's just to take care of your home for a long time if you're going to stay in it.
Absolutely. Another thing, a tip that I tell my buyers and sellers, and say, you can buy a home warranty at any time. And the best thing to do is to get a home warranty, ride out their waiting period, and then get a home inspection, and then use that home inspection to go back to your home warranty and say, we need all these things fixed. Okay, so is there any question that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
I think the one thing for the termite inspection is the biggest misconception of a termite inspection is what it actually entails, or what a customer is going to get out of the inspection. So I think, I don't know about how many companies do this. It's something that we do, that we started with another company that we worked for, and then now that we do for our business, is the rodent evaluation, the pest and rodent evaluation. So when you're getting a termite inspection, always, if you're worried about general pests, like you're saying, or even if you're not worried about general pests, getting a rodent and pest evaluation, we actually include that with our termite inspection. We give a complimentary rodent inspection at every inspection, because it basically tells you if you have any holes in your property for intrusions for rodents to be able to get in, if you have an infestation of spiders in the crawl space, or you have any areas on the exterior that may be a condition of pest. So if you do get a home inspection and a termite inspection, ask that company if they do a rodent evaluation also, or a pest and rodent evaluation also, because most companies I think will include it or charge you a very minimal fee. And it's really good to know, because we'll find a lot in our rodent inspection, especially in the attic, is nobody ever goes in their attic either. And if you do a rodent inspection, you may have a lot of rodent feces and urine inside the insulation, and it can cause issues in the future with all kinds of things. Bacteria, urine coming through your sheetrock. Some people will see stains on their sheetrock and they'll think it's a stain from like a leak from the roof. It could just be from a rodent or a small animal living in the attic and using the sheetrock as their body, and then causing that stain. And you can think it's a roof leak, but it's really a infestation of some sort of animal. So getting that inspection along with your termite inspection is probably the best remedy of fixing those problems.
I've seen it a couple of times where I've been doing inspections and I've looked at the roof and I'm like, oh, there's a stain up there. And then I think about the roof and I'm like, well, there wasn't really anything going on in the roof. And then when I get into the attic and then I have to see, that there's something going on with some pest situations. You know what? I'll piggyback off of that post you did a few weeks ago. It's really whether or not you're buying a home or whether or not you're selling a home. Or again, like Leo said, even if you're just getting it done for your own peace of mind, or you just want to know what's going on with your own home, the cost of it is a cost. There's always going to be a cost with everything. It's good to know, and especially in certain cases, the sewer lateral is probably one of the more important inspections to have done. There's a lot of things that happen because of trees, because of settling, just because of damage, because of things that were flushed down the line or whatever it is that can happen to that line, that if you have no idea about that, you just don't know until there's a problem, right? All of a sudden your sewer backs up into your house and you're just like, well, I don't know, everything was fine before. What could have possibly happened? But the bottom line is the only way to really fix those things is to repair the line. So, because it's just going to come back. You can snake it, you can water jet it, you can do whatever you want. But once that line is compromised, it's compromised. And unlike under your house, again, if you had a subfloor of raised foundation where you can actually get somebody to go under the house and replace the piping, that's not as bad. When you have a slab foundation, everything is underneath the slab. Then you're getting a jackhammer, messing up your floors and doing all these crazy things. That's the thing that's important to know. A sub area under a house gives you much more access to do changes and upgrades, right? And a lot of these older homes is typically where you're going to see raised foundation homes. However, there are still a lot of newer homes that are built with raised foundations. Typically, they're in areas where the slope of the foundation or the slope of the terrain of the property is sloped, and there's no way to have a flat area. And so they, instead of digging into the area, they support it and raise the foundation, and one side's sloped and the other side's really high, and but then they get their flat area, right? So those types of homes, it's actually really easy to do those kind of repairs and those kind of upgrades. And obviously, if there's problems, you can really pretty easily see them. Not to say that slabs are horrible, but it just makes it a lot harder to do repairs with a concrete slab foundation, because literally you have to jackhammer up the area to figure out what's going on. Most times nowadays, with the way they're doing things now with piping, you're not really going to run into a problem, but it still happens. It's not like, you're looking into a home that has cast iron piping or old transite piping under a 60-year-old home, and you'd have to jackhammer up the foundation. Most homes nowadays, they're all going to be constructed with either PVC or ABS drain lines, and that stuff's pretty resilient. But I think the thing that I can recommend the most out of anything is do not skip your general maintenance. You need to do maintenance. There's a reason why you need to do that maintenance. Like Leo was saying before, clean out your gutters, clean out the valleys on your roof, get that done. So maintenance is probably the biggest thing that I can suggest for any homeowner or anybody that's going to be buying or selling a home is make sure you do your maintenance, and do it often and do it regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. It maintains your equity. As a real estate agent, it breaks my heart when people have lived in a home for a very long time and they've built up this equity, and then they get their pest inspection back, or they get a sewer lateral inspection back, and it's like $30,000 just poof, gone. And those are items that buyers want to see fixed. Like, nobody wants to inherit a bad sewer line. Nobody wants to inherit a ton of dry rot or termites or wood-boring beetles. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, the best thing that you can do to maintain equity and, of course, maintain the property structure that you're living in is to get this maintenance done. And so not only can you get these inspections when you're buying or selling, but you should get them on a regular basis. I like that idea a lot. And so your team at Trifecta, you guys do home inspections, pest inspections, any other inspections?
So we also do mold inspections and mold sampling. So obviously, if there's any concerns with mold, we can sample that, send it off to a lab, and make sure that it's tested. We can look for areas that are going to cause that. Thermal imaging is also an important inspection to do if you have concerns about leaks, or issues with electrical problems, things like that. Any kind of thermal differential, you're going to be able to see that with that. Also, pool inspections if you're going to, either sell or buy a house. Or again, even if you just want to, make sure your pool's in the proper operating condition. Sewer lateral inspections obviously is another, one of the bigger ones as well. Attic inspections, we'll do a lot of different inspections separately, but typically we include all those with the home inspection. But if somebody, reaches out to us and says, I got a problem with my attic, I don't know what's going on, I have a leak or something, we'll still do an inspection. It's just an abbreviated inspection, and we just won't do a full inspection, something like that.
But all the inspections you listed are something that people could get through Trifecta.
Yes.
how far do you go? So we're in let's say Sacramento County right now. Do you do the surrounding counties, and then how far out?
Typically anything about 100 miles from surrounding Sacramento area. Yeah. Usually, if there's a pretty far distance, we will sometimes charge a travel fee, but in most cases, it's not usually a problem. Pretty much, anything up, 80 and 50, going up towards, Tahoe and Reno, and then in the Bay Area, San Francisco, kind of in that area as well.
That's actually a really great distance. Write that down. But we choose you guys more often. Okay, that's all the questions that I have for you guys. I really appreciate you coming on here with me. I'll have you back for more in-depth discussion on maybe some more specific questions like that. But do you have anything that you want to tell the viewers before we go?
I mean, really, just like I mentioned, don't neglect your house. That's the biggest thing. Don't neglect your house. That is probably one of the conversations, if I ever do any kind of, office meetings or anything like that, it's just don't neglect your house. You will end up paying for it later if you do.
Yeah, the thing with Charles is like the general maintenance on your house for the home inspection is also for the termite inspection. Make sure that your not only your home but your property is fairly clean too. So, like with termites, a lot of people won't notice termites don't like live in the structure of a property. Termites live in the soil all throughout the country, right? So, if you have a bunch of dead some boxes or paper or firewood laying on the ground in your yard, that brings the termite from the soil up into the property and you get it closer to your house. So you want to make sure you keep anything that can be eaten or damaged via termites or wood destroyed organisms. You want to make sure that you keep that stuff away from your structure. Like keep it off the ground. A lot of people put a lot of cardboard boxes in their garage, and then there'll be termites in the bottom of the cardboard box because they're just laying on the concrete, and then the termites come through the cold joint of the garage. So you'll put a box in next to your foundation. You lift it up, and then the box is just eaten with termites and all that. They can damage your personal items that are in that box also. So keeping things away from the ground and the soil is a good thing for termites and bugs. And then also another thing that we do is we also offer general pest control services also. So like not just general maintenance of your home, but if you have ants, spiders, things that you want to keep continuously filled, we offer that service also, which is the quarterly pest control service, and that goes along with your general maintenance of keeping your property clean, clear and clear of termites is keeping the general pests away too. So
I love that plug. That was smart. I'm so glad that we got to this question so that you could say that. And I know that everybody is now looking at their ceiling and thinking about their back garage. And they're like, do I have boxes sitting in my garage right now? That's what I was thinking about this. I need to go maybe do some cleanup after this. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time. And if you need pest services, if you need home services, call Trifecta. These are great guys. Thank you.